Good morning, my friend. New day, new learning.
Maciej, Nico, nice to see you.
Same here. Do you know about this time where everybody's telling you, yeah, you need to make your code readable, Maciej, or make it sure that, it's easy to understand. And have you ever wondered why is that? Like,
Never
what is
happened to
happening?
me. My code is so readable and clear that without any questions.
No questions. I agree. This is a topic that has been always as an engineer on my mind since the first time I was hearing about this concept, and it resonated from the beginning with me. Make your code easy to consume. But I never really have been able to explain it from a business perspective until very recently. I've been watching a talk from Dan North that I'm going to put into the comments, and that really opened my mind about why is that? Like, why should we make our code readable? And then is talking about reasoning on code as if it would be cost. Every time you interact with code in one way or another, you are making an expense for your organization. And the thing is that how many times do you write code versus how many times do you read code, right? You write code once generally. And I like to say it in a way like I write it once, I extend it hundreds, I read it thousands of times.
Yeah.
So there is really a different ratio to the amount of time you write it versus to the amount of time you read it. And that is the moment where I started to realize, okay, that's how we can relate to business. Reading code, it's costing the company money because I'm spending time to try to understand what the hell my colleague have been writing. And the more you wrote a piece of not good code, the more time it's going to take me for consuming this code and understanding it. And so it's going to cost more and more money to the company if you made a bad job, and I have to, kind of close these gaps. So this to me felt like a mind-blowing, like an epiphany for me to understand, okay, this is why I should optimize my code for readability. And that becomes, it's one of my key rules. Like, it's the foundation rule. Sometimes I ask people what is their foundation rule, and I hear different thing. I strongly believe that our foundation rule should be you should optimize your code for readability. Yes, there are exceptions. You might be working on an embedded system where you have very limited memory, or you are in a very high performance like environment where you cannot even waste a character. Yes, okay, but those are generally very, very tiny exceptions, right? But in the world of software engineering, we live in, let's say web application or non-performance optimized application, we can apply this kind of rule. So I love Eddie Osmani, he's an engineer from Google, that says, your code is a love letter to the next developer who will maintain it. And this is how I like to reason about it. So this is my simple take for today. It's not going to be more than that. Optimize your code for reliability. Remember that code is communication. Code is communication for the next developer that will maintain it. Remember that reading code costs the company money, and you want to minimize that cost. Remember that to make code easy to read and to consume, you want to have code that fits into your head. And that means, it needs to be small. You need to look at it, and you don't need to be scrolling. Like, if you're scrolling, generally, it is already a bad sign. And it needs to be easy to digest. So you need to have, name that reveal their intent, that are easy to pronounce and to understand. So these are the 3-4 simple rules that I wanted to share with you today, and that really changed how I could explain why it's so important to optimize our code for readability. How does it seem to
you? I love it. I need to say that the first time I understood that it is really important to make everything clear was I always thought that my code is so readable and it's only other people suffering with understanding my intention, which are pretty cool if you are clever. So one time I just returned to my code, the one that I made like 1 year before, and it was like completely messy and understandable. And this is why I understand it's not like only love letter for your colleagues, it's also love letter for you, future you. So you are also messing with your old code, and this really matters. Because even if right now you have this context and everything is pretty similar, pretty obvious for you, in 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, it will not be. Unless your code is really clear. And this is another thing I want to point here. It's not only about readability, but also about making your code very explicit. No hidden context, no hidden implicit assumptions, stuff like this. You know, these days I'm working on Teams plugin to our application, another one. And you know, everything in Microsoft Word, unfortunately, is just against this rule. You have a lot of like hidden assumptions. You can't even find anything about in docs, and we are all suffering. Like all developers working on that are just suffering with this. Just example from like 1 hour ago, I in our end file we have encrypted version of the password, which you can find on their site. So how should you encrypt this? Anything about that in your documentation, in their documentation? Anything about like what kind of encrypted algorithm or stuff like this? How to just do this? You have just your secret, but in your application you need to use like an encrypted version of it. And you know what? They made some magic. So once you put the raw version of your secret, and once you start debugging, it will convert it automatically for you to keep it like in the secret version, like encrypted version. But how would you know? I spent like 1 hour and just, you know, giving up. I just put the raw version to see whether it will work, and magically it would just convert into encrypted version. But this is, I would say, this is a very bad rule. You shouldn't do stuff like this. This sounds magical and maybe nice for you in the moment you are creating the code like this, but at the same time, it is a hidden implicit knowledge that you will not remember in 1 year. So everything should be very explicit, and then everything is easier. So yeah, I'm totally with you here. We should spend a lot of time. Yeah, also one thing which stays with me after just learning how to make readable code, let's say, is clear intention. Your code should always show the very clear intention. So whenever you are looking at your code, you should know what this piece of code is supposed to be doing, and this code should just do exactly this, nothing else. And then everything, as you said, shouldn't be too long, should be pretty straightforward. But if you know the intention, if you expect this piece of code to do something, and this code is really doing this, it's very helpful.
That resonates with me so much. And I think we could spend, you know, another 20 episodes to talk about what is good readability and how to make your code easy to consume. But I think, I love what you said, and it does resonate a lot with me. So thank you, my friend. It was nice to be here together today.
Thank you for bringing this topic, and see you next time.
Ciao.